Hey guys, Epicenter Brian here. Hey, I'm going to embark on a project and share with you guys having to do with the pump for the harvest right. So my pump down here has started leaking oil, and I hope you can see how wet this rag is. It's leaking from back in here where the rear seal is. So you can see that's dry, that's wet. So I talked with Harvest Right about it, and they said that if I ship it back to them, they could replace the seal for me, no charge. I told them that I would really like to have a spare pump and to repair this pump myself so that I could videotape it and share it with you guys. So they agreed to send me the parts, the rear seal, and then there's another O-ring seal, and then the main outer seal for the housing, the front cover, because that has to come off. And I'm going to go ahead and clean the inside while I do this. So anyway, that's what's going on in this video. For now, I'm going to go ahead and swap this pump out with the spare that I bought, and so that I can get the freeze dryer going again. Alright, well, I have already started on this project. Let me show you where I am right now. So the front cover is off, and I've already cleaned the inside. The cleaning of this is really very simple. Just go ahead and start off with using a rag and just wipe the stuff off. Now what I ended up using was one of these spatulas, for doing drywall. This is one that I had rounded off the edges so it wouldn't scratch anything, and so anyway, I used that for kind of scraping off the debris that was on the side of this main pump section, and then just wiping off all the rest of this. Now, a couple of people had asked about how to get the sight glass clean, and you can see that this one is actually very clean now. And what I used was this carburetor cleaner. You can get this. This is a Gunk brand. You can find that at any of the auto parts stores. It did a really good job. So you just take that nozzle, and where the sight glass is, you can see that there are openings that you can squirt in, and that did a really good job. And then I used that same liquid in there and kind of whooshed it around and used a rag to clean the inside. Now, a couple of things you're going to notice. You see up here on the top, now this is the front of the pump housing, and this is the top. You see all of that white discoloration. That is oxidation on the aluminum. What that means is there has been water droplets hanging out on the top of the inside of the pump, causing that to corrode. You'll also see around the sight glass that you see a little bit of rust, and again, that is from moisture inside the pump. Okay, now there's a part that goes right here, and that's this part, and I'll show you some shots of it before I cleaned it. This is a shield that goes up here, and you can see that it's got rust on it on the top side, but it's got a lot of pitting on the bottom side. Okay, and so some of those particles that you see more and more of as you're using the pump, some of those particles are actually rust particles coming from that part. So there's a guy that sells a stainless steel replacement. This one obviously won't rust. And he also sells some bolts that are inside of here, and I'm going to end up swapping those out. Now, on the pump mechanism here, you're not supposed to disturb any of these bolts. You can if you do one at a time, okay, because that keeps this aligned correctly. So since I have to take that mechanism off to get to the rear seal to replace that, that's what's wrong with this pump right now. I'm going to go ahead and replace those with stainless steel, and I'm going to replace this as well. Okay, now a couple of other things. Let's see, these are the parts that Harvest Right sent. This is the rear seal that we're going to be replacing. and then this goes underneath of this main piece right back in here. There's an O-ring. So anyway, that's what that is, and this is a new cover gasket, which I don't think I'm going to need. This one's intact and it's in good shape, so I'll probably reuse that and save this for another time. Okay, now JB also sent a replacement nylon ball. This is the ball that sits inside of here, right below that O-ring seal. And some of you may have seen that other video where that ball had irregularities. So anyway, they sent a replacement. I'm going to install that. They also sent these two parts. Now, I had asked for the O-ring seal that sits up inside of here, and they sent these, and those are not for this pump, so I don't know what that's all about. But so they get a 50% correct on the replacement parts. Now, I should also note that I am going to get this oxidation off of here before I put this all back together. And right in here, there are some rust particles as well in these detents in the housing. So I'm going to get that all cleaned up before I put this back together. But anyway, now let's take a look at the big issue with this pump, which is the rear seal. Okay, and at this point, I'm going to recommend that people not try to replace the seal themselves unless your pump is out of warranty anyway, because let me show you why. So here we go. We're going to turn this around. Now, to get into here, to get into where the seal is, it's up inside of here. It's easier to see from the bottom, but anyway, to do that, you have to take this motor off. Now, to take the motor off, there are 4 long screws here, and then once you undo these 4, you'll notice that there's one out already that is broken, right there where the threads are. Okay. Once you get those out, then you could take the motor off. And let me just show you this here real quick. If I could do this one-handed. Okay, can't do it one-handed. Yeah, I can. There we go. Okay. Now, we were able to slide that off because there's a coupler, there's a plastic part here that goes in between this part on the motor and this part on the pump. Okay, so you're actually able to take the whole motor off without having to undo these coupler pieces. Okay, but we are going to have to take this one off to get the pump mechanism out. Anyway, I just wanted to show you that, yes indeed, that broken stud there is from this screw. So one of these came out really nicely. That's this one. And look at that screw very closely. Okay, there's nothing on those threads. Then this one down here, unfortunately, you can see this white stuff. That seems to be a thread locker. So it looks like they put thread lock on that one. This one down here, I had the same issue. This one didn't really want to turn. And also had the same issue with, of course, this one that broke, which is still in there. So it looks like they put a thread locker that has too high a rating for those bolts, and so that one actually snapped before the thread locker loosened up. Okay, so anyway, if your pump is under warranty, you ought to just send this back and have them do it, because if they break it, if they break those bolts, then they have to deal with it. Now, I happen to have a friend up the street who's got a machine shop, and so I'm gonna take this up to his machine shop, and I'm sure that he's got, you know, tools that he can grab a hold of this and get this out, and then we'll go ahead and chase the threads, clean out the thread locker. The manual from JB says that it's important to keep the motor together, not to allow, you know, the end plates to come off. So what you want to do is find at least one nut. That's what I found around here that actually fits this. And go ahead and tighten the body back together with one nut to make sure these don't come apart, and then just go ahead and set the motor aside. Now before I take this off, I went ahead and measured this at about 0.5 millimeters. So this shaft is in by about 0.5 millimeters from the edge of the coupler. So that way I can kind of get this back in the ballpark and make this whole assembly a little bit easier, and then make final adjustments, you know, with this Allen wrench from the bottom. This may be a little hard to see, but hopefully you can see there's white stuff on here. That's thread locker also on the coupler. Now the interesting thing is it's fairly easy to see that that shaft isn't totally centered coming out of the pump housing. At least it doesn't look like it. Well, it turns out I am not going crazy. So I've got a drill bit. This was measured at 1.94 millimeters, and that fits in that gap with plenty of room. This drill bit was measured at 1.44 millimeters, and that doesn't fit in the gap up here at all. So this shaft is actually this way by more than 0.5 millimeter from being center. Okay, and JB installed that at the factory, so they actually misaligned the pump body inside of this by more than 0.5 millimeter. The pump guts are out, and here we are. There's a little O-ring right up in here. There's an O-ring that goes right here. That's still sitting on this part. And there's all kinds of debris inside of here, which is very, very odd. But I guess their idea was to have an oil channel to get oil down in here. But it also allows rust particles and other debris to go right into the seal also before it goes down to the sump area. So that's what it looks like on here, and look at all of those little particles. I don't know if you can see this, but there's a lot of crud, and it happens to be right where the seal is. I don't think that's the greatest design. The seal is out. Now let me show you what I did. In the JB manual, they talk about putting a screwdriver in there and kind of prying it, and I was worried about scratching up the wall in that pocket where the seal goes. So what I ended up doing was this. I measured that hole, and then I found something that would fit in the hole with a little bit of space so that this could get pushed against the seal, and it just popped the seal out. You had to put a little bit of pressure on there, but anyway, that's what I did. This was a socket extension, but you know what you use, you want to make sure that it's just a little bit smaller than the hole so that it moves through freely and doesn't mar that hole, because you're going to use that hole for the reference to make sure that the shaft is centered when you put the pump back on. Okay, now I'm not going to get a lot more done tonight because I have to clean this up, and you'll notice that there's crud on the shaft in here, so I'm going to need to clean that up. Now I think that that is just below where the contact was, where it was touching the seal, but that's where the debris we saw was sitting. So anyway, just for fun, I'm going to take this seal and I'm going to put this on here, and just so you get a sense, the shaft rotates on this seal right here. So if that is not centered, the seal gets worn. But also, if you have crud that gets in there, then that wears out the seal. I thought some of the YouTube channel subscribers would be interested in seeing what this pump cartridge looks like. looks like this. There are these vanes here that slide out from centrifugal force, and they seal on this off-centered cavity here. So as this rotates, you see that that vane moves out, and then when it gets over on this side, you see that it moves in. So anyway, one thing I noticed on this pump cartridge is the shaft is rusted in here. This is apparently behind the seal. I'm going to run some footage from the microscope so that you can see that. Over in this area, you'll see a line right there. I think that's where the seal actually touches the shaft, so I'm hoping this is going to be okay. Then you'll see this rusted area on the shaft, and that's behind the seal where all that gunk was. And then further towards the inside of the pump, you'll see an area that's got some wear on it. Well, that wear comes from touching on this part, and obviously there was some liquid moisture that got in there as well and rusted that a little bit. Anyway, that's not as huge an issue. Hopefully this will work out okay. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get the seal installed and put this back together. You need to have this flat part facing down like this. They say to just put it into position and push this in with your fingers, and then what they want you to do is to use an 11/16 socket to drive this in the rest of the way. That's installed. What I ended up doing was I used this side instead of this side because it's such a thin wall. There's not a lot of contact area, so this worked out better. And then I just kind of walked this around, so I'd hit it and move it over here and hit it, move it over here, move it over there. I just kind of walked it around until it got down into position. Now they say that this should be about 1/8 of an inch, and here I'm going to have to move the camera for a second. And you can see that that is very close to 1/8 of an inch. 1/8 of an inch is 0.125, so it's in position. I'm happy with that. Now the next step is to put some grease on here, and then I'm going to put the pump in position, and I'll show you something that I'm doing for helping to keep that aligned while I tighten the bolts. I made a little alignment jig here to make sure that that stays centered while I tighten the bolts. So I printed this on my 3D printer. This outer diameter was just a little bit too small, so I built that up with some Teflon tape, and that goes right on this shaft and just presses in. Okay, and that keeps it centered. Now it's wider here, so I could get my fingernails on here to be able to pull it out. These have been tightened up, so the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and replace these two. And again, just do one at a time. And I've already replaced these up here on the little spring valves, and these have been cleaned and everything as well. So that's done. The new shield is installed. So now we just pull this little alignment tool out of here, and voila! As a sanity check, I decided to measure this and see how close I got it. Okay, so from my calculations, that gap should be 1.5494 millimeters all the way around. So 1.55 millimeters. And so what I've got here is a 1.44 millimeter fits in the gap on this side, and a 1.55 millimeter is a little loose on this side. So I've got a little piece of shim stock that I cut, and that material is 0.1 millimeters, and so this fits well. That means that the shaft is down this way by 0.1 millimeters, which is 4/1000ths of an inch. So 4/1000ths of an inch and 0.1 millimeters is, you know, that's way better than what I measured with the seal that was installed at the factory. So I'm happy. This is as good as I'm going to get this. But it was nice to do a little sanity check, so I'm going to start putting this back together, and we'll do a vacuum test on it. I should also add that the shaft turns very nicely, so it's real smooth and easy to turn. This coupler is back on. What I did was I put the shaft facing down, so this one tooth here is pointing straight down on both the motor and on the pump. And now we'll put the motor on. The motor's in position, and what I'm going to do is apply some thread locker to these threads, but I'm going to use the correct grade. This is for a number 2 screw through 1/4 inch, and this is a number 8 screw, so that'll make it a little easier to get these off if I ever have to do that again. Now for the broken one, I've got some all thread, okay, kind of long. And what I'm going to do is mark this here, and then take this out, cut it with a hacksaw, and then put it back in. Hey, one other thing I decided to do was get rid of this little valve that is so hard to get to and open. And so what I did was I put a flexible pipe back here, and then a couple of parts that came from Home Depot, and so there's a easy to turn valve. This I found on eBay, and I have no idea what the part number is, or where you would normally get those, but my big thing was I wanted to have this extended out further, but I also wanted this flexible in case it got bumped, because I didn't want to have a solid pipe come out there that could get bent or broken, especially right at the pump housing. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that, and if you can just send it back and have them repair it, do it. Because it does take some time and some messing around, but it's possible. We're going to do a little vacuum test on this and see if this is leaking. So I've got some paper down here, so it'll make it easy to see if the rear seal is leaking. So we're just going to fire up the harvest right. We'll start a cycle here. Okay, well, the pump's been running for 25 minutes, and it's down to about 25 millitors, so it seems to be working fine. And I've already checked, doesn't look like it's leaking any oil, which is a good thing. So I'm going to shut this down, and tomorrow I'm going to use this pump for a full batch while I'm here, so that I can kind of keep an eye on the seal. But anyway, that's it. Looks good. For theepicenter.com, I'm Epicenter Brian, signing out.